6.5. We moved to this new house, and here's this other woman. I'm like, what's she? Where's mum? That's the first thing that went through my head, where's my mum? And then the kicking started from my dad, and then he stopped feeding us. I mean, this went on for years. I went to school one day and he brought us new shoes, and the sole came off mine. And I came home and he picked me up, and this wardrobe was about 6 feet tall. He just picked me up, threw me over it, I slammed off the wall, and I landed on the bed. And he says, "Didn't you get out of that bed?" It just got out of control. I mean, this man was, I'm surprised he hasn't killed any of us. He didn't hit you like that, it was that. I came in one day and he stripped me naked and he put me on a table, and I tried to get down, and he came over and he hit me that hard in the stomach. I couldn't breathe. I actually the table was up to about here. So I just went like that, and he came over and caught me, and he put me back up, because I had to put my arms out like that. And he says, "You take them down, you're getting it again." But she was always sitting there leering at me. She had this, we call it a sleek-it look. That's what she had. This woman was just pure evil, right? She had no time for us or anything like that. And then we moved up to another scheme, and that's when it really went worse. I mean, she was raping me, and he's kicking the crap out of me and staring me, and things like that. And I've spoke to my brothers, and they says, "Yeah, we've seen the kickings you got." And I've always, in the back of my head, went, why was it me? Why was it me that, even though it wasn't me that did anything, it was me that got it? And that woman, I loathed that woman. I hated her. When she started raping me, that's when, because she'd always waking me up, "You come with me," and I'm not coming with you. "Do you want me to tell your father?" So she used his terrorising ways to me to get me to do what she wanted me to do. She was making me do everything to her. I had to give her oral sex, I had to suck her nipples and things like that, and she even took my fist to shove it out in her vagina. You know what I mean? And there was always this smell that, up until I got help, it was there. Like, I could be in a house, smell, oh, there's that, and I would just leave. It doesn't matter if it was a friend's house, right in the town, like that. That's what I started doing.
The triggering.
Yeah, because it's a smell that you can't get rid of. It's like a cop when he says, when you smell a corpse, you never forget that smell. Well, that's what it was like for me with her. So this went on for years, and then he got charged and she got charged with raping an 18-year-old at a party. He got 4 years, she got a year. Then I was taken into care first, and then my other brothers, they were taken into care. I was only 10, but I don't understand how it took 3 years to get me out of there. It's nothing new, but it's never in the papers. The woman's face is never shown, and it should. This should be coming out like women being raped. How is it they're over the news when a woman gets raped, or she was raped in childhood by a man, but because it's a woman, it's a different kettle of fish, because people just did it. Women didn't do that. For a woman to do it, she's the carer. She's the one that looks after you. She's the one that nurtures you. She wouldn't do that to her child. Yes, she would. Why is it it's accepted for it happening to a woman by a man, but it's not accepted for a woman doing it to a man? That's my problem. Okay? Just don't understand it.
There were times I was angry growing up, even from the age of about 8-year-old. Because I'd moved from our first house to this area, and I started primary 5, there was a school up the road, and I guess it was because I was the new guy at the school that I was going to be getting picked on, and I wasn't having it. It's different when you're standing up to your peers, because they're more or less the same build or the same age as you. But because I kind of knew that my father was treating me the way he was, he could, because I couldn't fight him back. So for the first few weeks at this new primary school, I had about 5 fights. But I was kind of like saying to myself, I'm not going to be bullied. If I start allowing myself to be bullied, being new at the school, I'm always going to get bullied. So I just made it clear from the offset that I was going to stick up for myself.
I was bullied at primary school, and in secondary school I became a bully. I thought you had to get people to be scared of you to like you. And how far from the truth is that, eh? But just be, self-taught. My father was a bully himself, but he was a coward on the inside, and I dare say it. That was me, because I was that riddled with fear. That's the only way I could bring it out, was by showing a wee bit of wildness.
I just went off the rails in school and stuff like that. I would just throw a tantrum for no reason. I would just, kind of like that. So they took us out of there and threw us in a boys' Liz D school. And for 4 years, you were under lock and key. All you heard was chinkling and clanking and the squeaking of their shoes on the floor. But it was regimented. And then one day a social worker says, this guy's getting institutionalised. We need to get him out of that home. So they took me out there and they put us in a place. It was like you went to live with your stepmom and dad. You went to a normal school, you came in, you had your tea, you went out to play. But I couldn't adjust to that, because being under lock and key for 4 years and then you've got all this freedom, I just couldn't cope with that. I mean, when I got a girlfriend, I didn't care what to do with her. I didn't even care how to kiss her. Okay? I mean, that sounds funny to people, but I was 14 at the time. I just couldn't relate how you're supposed to relate to the opposite sex. I just couldn't bond that way.
I was a very aggressive young man, and it was with all that emotional stuff inside me. I've heard it saying at some of the meetings I go to, we're emotionally crippled people that have suffered. We didn't know what way to handle our emotions. And well, with what I suffered through, with what I went through as a laddie, no wonder that I turned to something. Alcohol was my drug of choice. It let me escape for what was going on in my head. My head was always like a squirrel's cage. And when I took alcohol to a certain level, and then all that stuff stopped. And it was like I didn't feel, I didn't fit in. I didn't feel like everybody knew everything about me. But it went further than that, because I used to get myself into trouble. I'd been going to mental institutions, and I was in prison a couple of times, and I was always blaming it on the drink.
I'll show you the scar on my arm, look. It wasn't because I wanted to be dead, but that's because at a time in my life when my father, who abused us, was charged, the court case took 2 years to go to court, and it was being deferred. Five times it was deferred. And the 5th time that they did that, I was really low. More low than I was when I was a child being sexually abused, I think. Because somehow you just managed to cope and go out and play, distract yourself. But this was full on. It's time to deal with this now, and I want it done. And I had the courage to do it, but I felt like still you're not being given the opportunity. It's not happening. And I sat on a chair, and I kind of thought to myself, death before dishonour, because I felt so weak, because I was so emotionally, I was weeping, not just on that night, but I'd started to write poetry. I was starting to try and express everything, and I felt really weakened by the power in emotions, and it hurt, and I didn't want to be weak. So it was almost like a self-punitive thing, where I thought, here, and I did it very calmly. I didn't strike myself violently, and when I did that, I consciously remember thinking to myself, here's something to cry about, which probably is an old script for my father's kind of language, that he would give you something to cry about. So I was punishing myself for feeling, which is a strange thing, because you're supposed to be a man.
When I took the overdose, it was just it all got too much for me. And it's I've dealt with my dad, he's been to court and he's doing his time, and it's but it's, I'm still left with it. You know, I'm still left with the mentally scarred. What I'm trying to say is, and it could be a door banging, it could be somebody like raising their voice, and it's like, because you've always got that memories. It's just like triggers. It's triggers for then. It brings it all back. I hated like guys, kind of in the public, touching you or humiliating you. Like, for example, calling you "you wee fat poof," for example. One guy had called me that, and it was like 8 years later that I remembered it, and I wasn't in a very nice place, and I said about him, and it might have been innocent people that were getting it, but what I was seeing and was my own man. Like, you know, when it happened, I was asking myself questions like, what did I do? Did I give him? Was I egging him on, or was I giving him any? I don't know how to describe it, or just meaning, was I gay, or have I got gay tendencies? I believe that my old man's left me with an illness in my mind, that I'm shite and nobody likes me and everybody hates me, you know. I'm no good and it'd be better not being here.